GM, just a quick one before we get going. So, as you know, the Blockmates podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Certainly shouldn't be considered as financial advice. We have absolutely no idea what we're talking about half the time. So, any investment decision you do make should be based on your own research and your own understanding of the risks involved. One more thing as well, there's around 50% of people who listen regularly who aren't subscribed yet. So, if you please could just do us a favor and hit the subscribe or the follow button or the like button, helps the content grow, helps us grow, helps it reach more people like yourselves, and it means the world to us as well. So that's the last I'll ask of you. So yeah, let's get to the episode.
Okay, we're back with the greatest and most likable name in crypto, Justin Bebis. Welcome, sir. I love your name. Love it.
Howdy.
Welcome,
not
sir.
to be confused with Justin Bieber.
No, definitely not. But yeah, it's good to have you on.
Great to be on.
One of the big brains at Oath, and I could never intro you. You're gonna have to do that yourself. But it's so cool to have you, man. I've been dying to chat to you, and welcome.
Yeah. Great to be here. Longtime fan, first time guest. I think maybe quick intro. Founder CEO of an engineering firm that is colloquially known as Byte Masons. Director of the Oath Foundation. So working really hard to kind of make sustainable DeFi, sustainable stable coins, yield products, etc. We have a really long history. We've broken a lot of records. Our team, which is right now 35 strong, the people on Oath is kind of a rotating cast of between 5 to 10. But really, the goal is to build the best DeFi software humanly possible. And not really much else to say besides we're getting very close, and hopefully we can talk about that some. This is like the first time we've ever done marketing that wasn't just our own stuff, so excited to get the word out.
Yeah, I mean, so what I've really enjoyed about this kind of like this relationship that we've undertaken with you guys is that we've obviously always recognized the true DeFi native like grinders, and that's the way that I picture you guys. It's like there's a mission, and like this is what we're doing, as you so eloquently described. Like we're here to build like solid stable coins, which obviously is the most important thing. It's got to be solid, and obviously like sustainable yield products that deliver on what they say on the tin. And it's like, and obviously a lot of guys love to do the copy and paste, and we'll try this because that did that. And you guys are very much the opposite. It's almost like, well, we don't really care about the noise, which is very clear in the way that you approach things. And we've obviously enjoyed that. And then when we obviously proposed to work with you guys, it was this really like awesome process around pure DeFi governance, going to vote, like and it really did demonstrate that there is a process in place with DeFi, and if it's done correctly, it can really have rewards. And I wanted to just chat about those very fundamentals, and obviously those kind of like goals that you've sought out. I mean, it's not about one product. That's the interesting thing about you guys, is that you haven't built one product. Is there anything in order that you would like to tell us about? Like, is Oath like your number one thing in your list? How does this kind of like the citadel of Byte Masons look like in your mind?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, really, like in terms of how we've grown and how we do work, I think something that a lot of people respond really well to is the idea that we're not here to go from point A to point B as fast as humanly possible. We're not really here to get rich or whatever. We're really here to move the needle. So again, it's never about how can we do what everybody else is doing. It's how can we look at what everybody else is doing and try our best to improve on it and iterate on it. And ourselves and 5 to 10 other teams are constantly doing this, working off of each other, seeing the innovation across the space and continuing to push. And I think really like what we do is a function of sitting down, looking at DeFi and saying to ourselves, this is important, and we need to work on this. And it's a lot bigger than, you know, the latest Ponzi scheme. And there's a lot to learn from
Yeah.
the latest Ponzi scheme, and I think really just having an intellectual curiosity is where we're at, where we can look at bonk, and do a SWOT and figure out why it's successful. Um, and there's the other edge that you kind of touched on with governance and all of that, where we're trying to do all of it in as compliant a manner as we can. So crypto is all about reg arb, and we understand that, but to us it's about how can we exist in 5 to 10 years, and really the key has been taking it slow, focusing on security and building in sustainability at the product level. So as far as like what we focus on and how I see the organization, really, we kind of go to where the fire is. We look at things and say what is inefficient, what are people not working on, and where can we kind of apply our skills, being smart contract engineering, security. What's the hard stuff, and I think your write up, for example, on Tapioca DAO, I think that's like totally a similar team where it's like, okay, we've got the grind set. Where can it be
Yeah.
most effectively applied? And that's how you get really, cool protocols. And Aave took 3 years or so to build, probably longer than that. Compound, same deal. And we're kind of on the same trajectory. We're getting from point A to point B. It takes a long time, and we're getting very close to point B, and we're doing it kind of in public. So we're building this really hyper, uh, you know, value conscious, this hyper risky, honestly, software. We're building it in public. We're iterating on it in public, and I think that's one of the most exciting things about DeFi open source software is, we can take these problems on, and we can take the people kind of along step by step the journey with us.
Wow. Okay, so you've probably given us at least 45 different topics to talk about. So I'll try and hold off on some of them, or more importantly, like for me, I think it's really about, you said something where you guys figure out where the fire is, and then you figure out what people do right, what people do wrong. Is that a process of like, so that you guys can be better, or is it a process of so that you guys can replicate that? I mean, what is the kind of like that kind of intellectualizing, your planning, your designing?
Sure.
What are you guys actually looking for in that process in terms of where you guys are going?
Yeah, I mean, I think better is always the goal. It's not always the outcome. I think the best we can do if we're trying to make software that's better, studying the landscape, is at least make software that occupies kind of a different risk profile or a different use case. So yeah, I mean, the process for the most part is kind of applying our mission. So the mission of the Oath Foundation: security, transparency, and accessibility in finance. We take that, we look at the market landscape, and we're like, okay, where is this not happening? And I think the unspoken kind of aspect to that mission is also sustainability, being we want DeFi to stick. Like, we want someone to look at a DeFi protocol and we want their jaw to drop to the floor, because it's so efficient. And I think that's happening to a certain extent, like with Solidly right now. You could deploy Solidly, the whole team can go off into the dark night, and it can kind of run on its own. Of course, that's not how it works in reality. It's a lot of work. But for example, one of the things we dialed in on fairly early on. So, for some context, we managed 300 some $1 million in our yield aggregator Reaper.farm in 2021. No token, no private backers. Sort of record-breaking success, which is kind of exciting. I like to just write off all of 2021 though. But we had this like huge expertise in yield aggregation, and building an expertise in yield aggregation really means knowing, like, at the rudimentary level, what everything does. Rudimentary being like the lowest, most granular level, what everything in DeFi does, how everything in DeFi works. We need to memorize every single code base, so we can operate quickly and go to where the yield is. So kind of our thought in 2022 after Luna crashed, we were like, okay, what would be awesome? What would be awesome is building a stable coin that can deliver, outperforming yields in a DeFi native way, uh, you know, relatively securely, with high degrees of peg stability. And the first thing we thought of was obviously, how can we make rehypothecation work, which is a really dirty word. People hear rehypothecation, and probably the first thing I think of is FTX. And I'm like, okay, what happens when crypto guys rehypothecate? They just, yeet your money into UniV3 and forget that impermanent loss is a thing. A la Celsius, if you remember that freaking absolute fiasco with their OXB4 wallet. But I digress. I think that it was a huge motivator, making what we saw work in 2021 at the product level, like technically sustainable. So right now we're kind of the only people working on rehypothecation. In TradFi, of course, banks, hedge funds, etc. All about it. There are a lot of really great papers about the risk reward of rehypothecation. There is a way to do it right. There are a lot of ways to do it wrong. So our focus is on just really boringly, if that's a word, step by step, trying to improve financial outcomes for stablecoin protocols using the underlying reserves. And really what that means is we lend them out in a very kind of low risk sort of fashion. So really high trust protocols. We deposit in supply side people's assets, and we just accrue a little bit of interest. So right now, just about 1% in total across the entire protocol. And what's cool is, of course, we think very long term, and unfortunately, when you're security minded, long term is actually a long time. So we've had these vaults that we've been kind of grooming for a year. On Reaper.farm, you can find them on Optimism, but we've had these vaults. We've been preparing for a year. We've been building out a ton of monitoring infrastructure, DevOps infrastructure, trying to make them the most reliable, most hardcore single asset vaults possible. And now we're getting to a point where finally we're looking at those, and they're delivering 5 to 10 times more yield than what we're earning now. And we're getting ready to migrate. We have a really deep relationship with Yearn, who's also going to be helping us manage these underlying assets. So we're at a point right now where we're kind of on the cusp of kind of realizing the vision of, can we make rehypothecation transparent? Can we make it sustainable? Can we make it auditable? Can we make it secure? And the result is a CDP platform that in DeFi exclusively, so we don't need to yeet money over to TradFi and farm treasuries. We're going to have a really sustainable, profitable CDP protocol. So we like to use kind of Maker or Frax, the work they're doing with RWAs. We try to use that as a benchmark and think, how can we get there with DeFi only? And how can we get there such that the entire kind of management pipeline is auditable every moment, and that the security guarantees are as close to what you can get in TradFi. So yeah, I know that was a long answer, but it's an important problem, I think.
So I mean, it's a great answer, because it affords us the opportunity to kind of like move on to the next one, in my mind anyways, of the story, to tell the story. And that is so let's start with not necessarily the negative, but kind of like the aspects of what DeFi has not managed to get right. I didn't want to use the word wrong, but there are aspects of DeFi that are wrong, and I don't want to get into kind of like the kind of the fringe stuff. I want to look at the core of DeFi where things did go off the rails. That obviously you looked at that inspired you to then do the right things, and I want to explore what you believe the right things are as well, and then how you guys have decided to bring it all together, because therein lies this citadel that I've the way that I view it, or like visualize it in my mind. Like there's DeFi does have that. Like I mean, I always have joked and said I am a DeFi maxi, and I think this is part of that whole kind of philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I think DeFi has historically been very aspirational, wherein we're designing these products where only in a world where the markets are really efficient and demand is very high can they operate, can they exist, and the result, like in 2021 and into 2022, the result was massive inflation of these tokens, huge yields, and you have people, for example, you know farming Aave, farming compound at 30, 40, 50% APR. And then, they're saving all their tokens. They're like, oh, dude, this is the future. And then a year later, the tokens that they had farmed at those high APRs, you look back and it's like, oh, after, minus 99% or 90% or whatever, it's actually just, a fairly regular rate. So it like inherent to DeFi is like the need to be a really active trader and speculator, which is fine. I mean, it's not really my cup of tea. I mean, the reason we create the products we create is because we're builders. We don't have time to sit down and absolutely min max yield or absolutely like outperform the market. We're working 12-hour days trying to build cool software. So I think that's a really big one. Is sustainability is a huge issue. There's an optics issue. We're in the product we're selling to people. And keep in mind, all of us are like, dude, we're going to onboard retail. We're going to onboard retail. The product we're selling is like a freaking, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a scam, but like what it looks like on the surface is not how it is underneath. And the nuance and the implications of a DeFi product, it's so complex and so tiny and granular and difficult to understand that you'll underperform if you're not like a total expert. And right now we have the capital rotation, the narrative rotation, the same like expert group of individuals may be successful enough to not have to work operating in DeFi, operating in this domain, just going around rinsing retail. Every time we get some newbies onboarded, if they catch themselves in a rotation, they just get, they're tipped upside down and all the change shaken out of their pockets. So that's obviously a problem that, again, talking about transparency, talking about accessibility, that we're trying to solve. We're trying to be no nonsense and no frills. We're trying to make our marketing very straightforward. And that's not like ultra competitive. We're not going to, become, the multi-billion-dollar protocol we want to be by being that serious. But I'll tell you, on the B2B end, the level of seriousness really plays well. So, when we're talking to institutions, et cetera, they might not be ready to engage with DeFi, but they're ready to engage with us and they're ready to talk about it. And I know there are a lot of teams like us who are skewing less toward, let's please the rotators, let's please, whatever kind of money is in this obtainable market here, and more so, let's keep our eyes on the prize, being, that juicy, however many quadrillion market share that Chainlink likes to tout in its graphics. And yeah, that's kind of the big one. I mean, there's another huge elephant in the room. I don't know if it's worth discussing, but security, obviously, the third part of that mission, absolutely like terrible outcomes. Like you think of if you're a hedge fund manager and you're looking at DeFi, you just have to laugh because people are like, oh, dude, look at this yield. And then you run it through any kind of risk management system. You apply the downside risk, which is okay, there's maybe a 10 to 15% chance this will go to zero. The 10, 20, 30% APR doesn't look that attractive in that case. And downside risk is weighed way more heavily in these risk management frameworks than anything else. So that's something that fighting against is crazy, crazy, crazy hard. And it's like every week, the naysayers are validated further and further. And really, it's a process problem. It's an experience problem. We started out like advising in kind of the DevSecOps domain. That was like a big kind of edge of our business in 2021, where we were just talking to every project and telling them, okay, how do you safely develop software? Because everybody was coming in as like a JavaScript dev, and Solidity is pretty easy to write. So it's easy to write, but writing it well requires a really deep understanding of security principles and the EVM and all of that. So we saw a lot of really bad software. We worked on that some, and it's just like a gargantuan problem that we've got like weird solutions that we're working on. We have the straightforward solutions being in process risk management, et cetera. And then security firms are getting a little better. Security tooling is getting a little better, but we're like I like to think we're not even close. That's why Blast is so successful. People would much rather just deposit in a multi-sig to outperform by 20% thanks to an airdrop than use whatever DeFi thing. And it always makes me laugh when DeFi founders are getting pissed off about, whatever new $1 billion TVL thing is happening. And it's like, dude, like obviously, you run a multi-sig through your risk management framework, and it's like, dude, there's no reason it wouldn't outperform. If you could say, hey, I could give you an extra 20% on your wrap staked ETH guaranteed or more, like annualized, depending on the success of Blast and that airdrop, it's like, oh, dude, what a good, easy product. And it's a dumb product, sure, but there's a reason it's successful. And like we need to continue working on programming those outcomes. And we're doing it like in the most painful possible way, trying to make everything DeFi native. But the nice thing is our architecture applies broadly. So we've got an RWA platform we're working on with the Polygon team. We've got like all sorts of cool stuff happening in the periphery using our core tech stack. But yeah, the problems are many in DeFi, and we're trying to solve all of them, as are a lot of other teams, and we'll get there eventually. And I guess I know I've been talking a lot, but last thing, um, I'll tell anybody who doesn't have like a traditional fintech background or hasn't experienced, the traditional finance system from an insider's perspective. Um, Execution is generally bad unless you're an absolute top firm. Um, the infrastructure is really bad. The tech is really bad. Tons of overhead, tons of maintenance. Like if you're going from fintech or TradFi to DeFi, even with Stripe, which has its own problems, even with the latest fintech solutions, the latest automation, TradFi just absolutely blows. It's so inefficient, and even looking at all the downside risk and all the security challenges, it's impossible. And we have a lot of senior engineers on our team coming from a fintech background. It's impossible to see a world where DeFi isn't like the thing that finance isn't running on, because it just is so much more efficient, and the security guarantees in terms of accounting, and the security guarantees in terms of like how can we have the absolute most perfect books are really really high. So what we're missing right now is the trusted execution, which can be solved with KYC chains, private chains. There are a lot of ways to solve it that are more ham-fisted. So all the stuff I'm saying is fully cognizant of the fact that DeFi will absolutely change the world.
So thanks for actually reinforcing the reason why I am a DeFi Maxian. And I think the really interesting thing that you've brought up is, obviously, how does traditional finance, we've got BlackRock now, we've got this ETF, and obviously there's a lot that I don't agree with around that, but at the same time, I think there is a realization that we have a way more efficient, way more robust, as you so eloquently once again have described, the DeFi landscape. These guys now see this. I mean,
Yeah.
CEO of BlackRock has made it very clear that he wants to tokenize everything. Obviously, it's going to be on his terms. Obviously, it's going to be these private chains. We know that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
How does Byte Masons Oath, all these products that you guys have built, do
Yeah.
you believe that you guys will land up riding kind of like in the or slipstream in the wake of this, or how do you perceive your role in this thing? Do you guys become inadvertently the pioneers, even though you are the pioneers right now? How do you maintain that status and benefit on
Yeah.
the money, and maybe there is a bit of fame, maybe there is a bit of ego, who cares what that looks like, but there needs to be some kind of recognition around what it is that you guys have been grinding out. And
Yeah.
how do you see that as part of this journey that you're on, and how do you see that playing out?
Yeah. I mean, totally eventually. Right now, DeFi innovation is happening in kind of like a public good sort of sense. And uh, we're iterating on all this stuff, kind of preparing it for a world where, all right, let's take another whack at modern banking. And that world is 5-10 years away or more. I will say, with the influx of institutional interest, in the same way we see capital rotate through all of the different, market capitalizations, we kind of see institutional interest trickle down, and it takes a lot of time. So, right now, Larry Fink was talking about Bitcoin 6 months ago. Now he's talking about tokenization, and it's really the same. Like, all these people are human. It's the same journey we've all been through. They're going down the rabbit hole. They're being introduced to all these novel solutions. Um, and eventually you get to a point where you consider DeFi. And where a lot of institutions stop is with the security guarantees. And I'll tell you, like, we know a lot of funds, and it's like every other month, because if you want to operate in size in the domains we operate in, being L2s, Alt L1s, etc., you have to spread out, and your surface area is very high. So it's like once a month, someone we know is getting hit by an exploit. Once a month, someone we know is getting hit by a rug or similar. Um, Absolutely painful, and that's where a lot of institutional interest stops. So how we as DeFi builders can kind of capitalize on that? I mean, the people we work with, like, tokenization is the easiest thing. Um, Wherein it's like, okay, we have this fund, we want to make settlement more efficient, we want to give more utility to our LPs, to our users, whatever. Tokenization is so obvious. Larry Fink sees this. So, on the tokenization front, we have a lot of unique products, very boring products. But, like, plugging into the institutional interest is something that's kind of been top of mind for over a year now. Um, and I guess another thing is, tokenization and this idea has been around and in the crosshairs of really huge funds for a long time. And building products that LPs will get excited by is not easy, because it's like, if you're an LP and you're throwing $10 million into some hedge fund or whatever, you want to not think about that. You want to just assume that it's awesome, and that it's in a good spot. So I think what BlackRock will give us, and what a lot of these higher tier institutions will give us, is um, diversity of product, as well as an obtainable market. Being, okay, you have however many millions of customers, maybe only 5 to 10,000 of those are going to be interested in token backed or token driven products, and that's still like that's what half as many users as Uniswap sees on a daily basis. So it's really just taking this addressable market that everybody likes to shout about in all their pitch decks and kind of distilling it into, who are we actually building for, and how can we build products that they will take to their friends and show them their other rich homies and be like, yo, look how fun this BlackRock product is to use. I don't want to hang out with my kids 24 hours a day, so I'm going to be in the basement playing with these tokens, trading them like Pokemon cards or whatever. That's kind of where things are at right now. And there's this dream that, oh, blockchain is just going to be the infrastructure that runs all this stuff. Nobody needs to care. And sure, that'll happen, but in terms of like acquiring notoriety or really capitalizing on that, it's just about being the people that are there, because there aren't a lot of service providers like us. And you'll see more and more, whether it be the name Byte Masons, whether it be you know uh, whatever other names that our firm has through our different branches or our different subsidiaries or whatever. You'll see us around. Like we'll be always kind of a part of the equation, and that like we have 200 plus repositories of proprietary technology. We have a bunch of open source technology as well, and it's really like uh, it's like nobody else has that. Like the people that have that are few and far between, and we've been working at a really big scale for 3 years. And people always laugh at us because we go so big. Like, oh, why do you need 35 people? Why do you need 30 people? Why do you need whatever people? And it's like, dude, like the work is there. It's there's so much demand, and it's like we're happy to break even as a firm as long as we can keep creating IP. And I think collectively what we've developed as a team is just this unselfish approach to growth, where it's like all of us are really strong believers. All of us are here because we want to sharpen our skills. We believe in DeFi. We think there's going to be a bunch of upside in the future. So how can we develop as much tech as humanly possible such that, now what we have is like a modular portfolio of technology that we can use to suit any use case. It's like what you were talking about, the Legos. Legos go way beyond, DeFi. All of software is Legos. Every dependency, every package you download in NPM is just a Lego. And what we have is like, the deluxe, $700, gourmet adult baby Lego set, that we can reconfigure in any which way to suit any use case. Like, we've got the monitoring, we've got the account abstraction, we've got the AI endpoints. Like, dude, like we're so far ahead of anybody else on the AI blockchain front. It like makes us giggle. One of our staff engineers is ex Splash Music. Another one of our contributors is um, runs his own AI startup on the weekends. And blockchain X AI, that's a thing that's going to be massive. It's going to change how we settle transactions and how we handle execution. And of course, it'll take a while to get there, but that's a whole nother conversation. And that's one that all of this stuff we're building, it's just we look at Oath and we look at how can we make the most innovative, exciting products. Like right now, surface level, it's a little boring. We're getting to a point where we're almost done with the boring stuff, and we can start to get people really excited with the kind of frou-frou accoutrement. But that's kind of what we're talking about, where it's like we're working in all these domains, we're doing the RWAs, we're building for your favorite companies, like all the things people are shilling all the time. It's like, oh, we're working on stuff for them. And there's a level of discreteness, of course, that's required, but all the stuff we're making, how we operate is we keep the IP no matter what. So all that stuff we see kind of amalgamate into product. And every year you look at what we're doing. It's like, what are the unit economics looking like? What's the tech stack looking like? Every year, it's like it'll just keep getting better. And we're very close to at the protocol level being profitable right now. A few key changes, and Ethos Reserve is going to be totally positive sum. And our goal is to just replicate that everywhere, and hopefully give DeFi a better reputation over time.
So Justin, there's once again like a tremendous amount. I asked the question, where do you guys see yourselves in this equation? And it's pretty much on all levels. There's philosophy, intellectual, there's mind space, there's a bit of ego, there's forging forward, there's understanding, there's also a lot of empathy, it seems, as well, in terms of where things have been, where they are, and where they're going. And I think the obvious thing for me at the moment is like trying to decide, like, where is it actually all going, besides like putting it all together and making things more efficient. Is it about primarily the technology? Is it about Ethereum? Is it about modular? Is it a bit of everything? I mean, how do you see all these different technologies that we've been exposed to, especially like over the last 2 years? Like, is it one wins it all, or is it kind of like the collective taking us to a place where we get the best of all worlds?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of narrative, I think really our goal is to, one, be narrative agnostic, which just means like being pure DeFi. I don't think there's going to be a DeFi narrative unless regulation improves. VCs haven't been allocating for a year and a half. So really, in terms of like something we think about, we're sitting down, we're like, okay, how can we suck up as much beta as possible, like really high quality beta? And that's just about being like in the right place at the right time. So where all of this is going, I think, is just, we like to think of Oath, for example, as an innovation index fund, being, through our horizontal growth efforts, we call them Oath chapters. We're going to be on all these networks. We're going to be talking to, Mantle. We're going to be talking to Monad. We're going to be talking to, Optimism, Arbitrum, BNB, Linea, Metis, everybody. We're going to be really close friends with everybody, and it's kind of for us right now, trying to think about what users are going to want 6 months from now. Like right now, we're going to be coming to Mantle in as little as a week. We've been working with them really closely since May. We're partnered really closely with the Ramses team there with their Cleopatra exchange. And the goal with Mantle was like, okay, you have the EigenLayer beta. They're the only people using EigenDA. You've got what seems like an inevitable narrative being the Mantle has $4 billion narrative. And, there it's like, let's help them build the bones, and let's help them build it right. And so that's probably seeing that narrative play out is probably a few months away. In terms of like Celestia, the modular blockchain thesis, et cetera, we work really closely with Polygon. I think Polygon CDK, as much as people love shitting on Polygon, they actually do have the best tech. I know that's like the most like people hate to hear it, but like actually they're way far ahead. So we see Validiums and zkEVM as being futuristic to the point that like Arbitrum and Optimism, you think any trust, you think Optimism is a little centralized at the moment, but both of them are like, oh, we need to start working on ZK, like we need to get there fast because the security guarantees are just way better. So everything that's happening on Polygon CDK, we've got our eyes on. They were delayed, Polygon, I think, in their launch of DeFi. They were going to do a big push. They're investing a ton of money in their ecosystem. They were delayed, which is good for us because our RWA stuff, it's really slow having to deal with like the TradFi domain. It's like, let's read another, 100-page document. But we're getting pretty close there, and they were delayed, which is like, oh, now we can be there at launch, which is the silver lining. X1 through OKX. I think something that people aren't as in tune with is the fact that OKX is slowly becoming a tier 1 centralized exchange. So we see their layer 2. Like nobody thinks of them in the retail domain and the developer domain as tier 1 yet, but the market makers all do. So we're looking really closely at X1 and what's going on there. Metis, that's a team we've been working with for a really long time. Thinking about how we can maximize our impact there. By usership, we already have one of the more popular apps, but we really want to just max everything out. And then of course there's LSTs, there's restaking, there's all this cool stuff. And, kind of like I've been saying, we have this modular tech stack. Our goal is to kind of mold it to whatever people want to see, frankly. And, part of that is just figuring out what makes sense for us and what doesn't, and then executing on that. And like we've really been building a lot of sustainability into our tech stack as well, being how can we develop faster and more securely? How can we automate more things? How can we make things more predictable? How can we improve speed to market? So, in 2024, we want to be launching like a new subsidiary or a new branch of the Oath ecosystem every month or two. And really what that means via Oath chapters is, one, Oath governance is insane. Ignoring the tokenomics upgrades, ignoring the real yield. If you hit us up in Discord, we can talk about that. But to us, like the really cool thing is how can we actually make governance awesome? So people are going to be able to like direct the usage of this tech stack through governance and be like, I want you guys to deploy here. I want a new token here. I want this, that, the other. And when we're operating like in a really small kind of nimble state, it's like, okay, let's deploy here. Let's give Oath holders a bunch of new tokens. Let's give the Oath Foundation a new stream of revenue. Let's, introduce a new group of people to our tech. And that's really the goal. It's like, if you like a chain and you're on a chain, you're like, oh, dude, imagine if there was, some cutting edge DeFi happening here. That happens through Oath governance, and the result of that is just going to be Oath as a token for our staking and LPing and all of that is just going to absorb more and more and more real yield, more and more beta, more and more tokens from all over the place. And I guess to sandwich that, some parallel storytelling here. That's why we think about it as an innovation index fund. It's like we're just going to be everywhere. We're going to be able to operate on a fairly conservative budget and really just totally access any network, any beta necessary. I don't know if you'll see us on Blast. We're just starting that conversation. I don't know if that's something that we're gonna be able to access necessarily, but everything else is on the table right now. Funny thing is, you probably will see us on Blast, frankly, but they make me laugh.
It sounds like you just made that decision now, so we'll save that
Yes,
segment in the
it's on the way.
podcast. Tell me, in terms of omnichain and kind of like the LayerZero and looking in your crystal ball, do you see LayerZero being as significant as we're anticipating it to be around exactly what it is that you're talking about, this whole ability to be everywhere all at once?
So we were like some people very early to the omni-chain sort of thing. And what we realized very, very quickly was, as a non-native protocol on a network, nobody gives a shit. And the only way they would give a shit is, excuse my French, sorry, is if like you're coming over as a massive success. And then even so,
Yes.
you'll probably still be like second party.
Correct.
And when we're coming in as the little guy, it's just totally like impossible. Nobody cares. You can't get anybody to care. I mean, you can pay them to care, but you can't really pay like enough, and it's just unsustainable. So the omni-chain thing, we have found, does not work yet. And I think a lot of people will find the same. And there will be a lot of people that I see like making the same mistakes we made early on, fragmenting their liquidity, trying to spread their narrative out across, so many demographics, so many networks. And a lot of people are going to be kind of tripping over their feet, making the same mistakes we did, adjusting probably in really innovative and awesome ways, which I'm excited to see. Um, and so right now we're really focused on kind of, we see it in Velodrome, we see it in Ramses, we see it in Sunna. There are a lot of teams that have been doing this where it's like, okay, let's create a self-contained ecosystem on this chain. Let's create a bespoke brand and go to market strategy. Let's, shake the hands with the foundation or whoever, see if we can get some deep co-marketing, and let's operate that way. And we've had like the second we made that switch, that was back in May, we started developing our chapters product. When we made that switch, the world opened up, frankly, and we gained access to more opportunity than we've ever had. And Mantle, for example, this product was kind of shaped around our Mantle effort. We got a big grant. The optimism grant that we got, in the bear market, that took us 6 months to get, of like producing more documentation than I've ever produced, of grinding, of whatever. We made a quick, 6 to 10 page deck for Mantle. We get them in the room, and it's like, wow, why is this so easy? Because they understand what we're bringing to the table in terms of innovation, and they're cognizant of the impact of our history, and they're aware that we're here to build public good. And that conversation has gotten easier and easier and easier and easier. And so, while every month or two we're trying to deploy these new facets of the Oath ecosystem, we're just going to see them in more interesting places, configured in more interesting ways. So that's kind of our approach. I think LayerZero app, like, dude, I love the LayerZero team. I think if there's anybody, even if they had to meme it into existence, if there's anybody that's going to make the omni-chain narrative really bang, it's them. But our story for the past 6 months has been one of consolidation, moving away from like, omni-chain is great. The Radiant team, that's a team that we look up to. We helped them build Radiant V2. We see their kind of approach to business development and cross-chain growth, and we're like, that's how you do it. You need to get someone to put $10 million on the table if you're going to move over there. And so there's the understanding that it can work, and that if your unit economics are pretty sustainable, if you can at least source enough demand and speculation for a token on a given chain, and have the capital to back it up, to remain at par in terms of inflation and demand, supply, economic, whatever, then you can do it. Do I think it'll work long term? I'm not sure. But right now, kind of our thesis and where we're building is, all of these, we consider all of DeFi right now really MVP. And everybody knows this to a certain extent. Like, I don't care how fancy and how cool your UX is. You're an MVP product. We're not going to get, the guy waiting in line at US Bank to download MetaMask or even use your wallet abstraction and engage directly with these products. Everything is going to be happening through managed products, through ETFs, through funds, through whatever, how TradFi exists now. We've come to terms with that. And so with this horizontal growth approach, we have, if we have 10 stablecoin protocols chugging along really sustainably, delivering outperforming yield in kind of a delta neutral way, we see the endpoint being kind of one of two things. One, we build a super app. We just have, okay, USD staking, you deposit that and it just routes, to whatever protocol makes the most sense. And number two is just accessibility through a fund. And that's where a lot of our institutional work comes in. This is already a role we're serving to a certain extent, where it's like, Ethos is here, we're outperforming, easy way to make your LPs happy. if you're looking for, 10 to 20% APR on a stable coin. We're going to replicate this on every chain, as many kind of areas of interest as possible. That we see as number two. So that's more accessible right now. There are some DeFi native funds that we work with that are really nice. Their LPs are really committed to DeFi. And then one step beyond that, like, what does DeFi look like when it's actually accessible? And it looks kind of like, Robinhood, but for yield, and maybe not even for yield. It looks like the Gemini Earn app or whatever, but DeFi. And
Absolutely.
we'll get there.
That's the only way that it's going to happen. The data account abstraction with an app or apps or however it might look is exactly the way that it's going to have to play out. I think that's really key, and I really like your appreciation of having like a home, like my home is here, but then if you can create that and get it right where your home is on Arbitrum, doesn't matter. Point is that you are identifying your value within that ecosystem, and you are putting your flag up and saying, I'm here and I'm doing my business and I'm good at it, and that's just the way. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think the challenge is for those who are, like once again bringing up tapioca and saying, well, they want to create a money market protocol that essentially, even though it's resident on Arbitrum, wants to essentially be resident everywhere else. And how do they then address those problems that you've once again demonstrated? So it's going to be an interesting conversation that you and I will have and reflect upon in the coming months, because we are going to be doing this again, and we're going to be doing it several times. And I think what's really interesting about inadvertently, not planned, we decided at the beginning of this interview that we were just going to go with whatever comes, and there's probably another 20 shows that we could do out of this conversation, just purely because of all the mechanisms that are at play in terms of how awesome DeFi is, and how it all kind of ties in together. But just kind of closing off today's chat, I wanted to just ask you, without putting you on the spot, besides being, like the question is, what are you bullish on at the moment? We are bullish about Byte Masons. I think there's a lot of evidence to demonstrate what you've spoken about to be fact. I mean, you guys are in many ways the front line. You are the guys that are out there coming up with different ideas, getting stuff wrong and getting a whole lot right, and that's how you grow. You clearly are wearing that on your sleeve. What are you bullish on right now in terms of where we are? You're very welcome to point out protocols. If you want to pump your bags, go ahead. But I'm just more curious around, like what it is that you see in the space right now that you think, cool, like this is a 0 to 1. We really do have like something to look forward to on that front.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a tough one because we're at a point where we're like, all of us are grinding to make things a little more efficient over and over and over and over again. So a very clear 0 to 1. I mean, ZK EVM is like, you take a security likelihood in optimistic rollups and turn it into a security guarantee. I think that's absolutely like massive. I think Foundry, the development framework from Paradigm, um, absolute 0 to 1 in terms of security and unit testing. I'm not going to give you any cool answers. None of this is actionable or investable, really. I think in terms of approach to like DeFi as a business, I think like Beethoven X. That's a team that's profitable right now, like absolutely grinding to see, can we make DeFi like actually viable, and they've been successful. I think Balancer Tech, what's coming up with Balancer V3 and a lot of this stuff they're working on. Again, do I think this is going to get priced in or whatever? Not really. I'm not really an investor, but tech totally awesome. And then I think like for AMMs, Maverick is really cool. I think Ramses is really cool. I think there are a lot of innovations being made in the ALM or the ALM space. Ichi, I think is a totally innovative approach to on-chain market making. And this is, I would say that's like top to bottom, like what I'm excited about in DeFi right now. I'm excited for security tooling to get better. I'm excited for AMMs to get more efficient, and I'm excited for it to be easier and easier to engage with those AMMs. And then in terms of blockchain, I mean, I'm super excited about Mantle and EigenLayer. A nice thing about Mantle is they've been around for a long ass time. So any tech that they're like, okay, we want to improve here, they just like pay a service provider, and then suddenly they're on the cutting edge, which I appreciate. Not trying to go against the grain too much. So I think that's going to be huge. And then, I mean, a lot of like my interest right now in terms of where blockchain is going to be headed is AI. I think like AI Ponzi schemes, I'm not super excited about. But if you think about the marriage of blockchain and AI, okay, you have this unbelievably amazing technology that tends to get things wrong. Okay, and getting things wrong is fairly catastrophic. And then you have a technology in blockchain where it's literally designed at the expense of every other kind of trade-off to get things right. And the crossover here is, you're talking about intents, you're talking about execution, you're talking about, how can we have an invariant that we're enforcing with a blockchain? How can we tape that to the end of an AI execution journey? And that is, to me, going to be increasingly the most interesting domain in crypto. We're in, like, hey, we're taking this naturally insecure thing, and thanks to the fact that we can like look a block ahead, we can see the future in the mempool with blockchain. So if we can marry these two concepts, we can guarantee like, hey, if this is in the mempool and we see that it's not going to do what we told it to do, we can just revert the transaction. And that, I think that concept, as annoyed as I am hearing about intents, especially when people are just talking about limit orders, I think long term, like LLM execution for finance is going to be like unreal. It's going to be awesome, and even beyond finance, there are so many crazy use cases. So we're looking a lot at like LAMs, large action models, and things like that, figuring out, here's this new UI UX that has come out of the water. How can we totally min-max that? How can we apply it to our DeFi software? How can we apply it to all the stuff that these institutions are interested in? And how can we make it maybe fun and secure? So yeah, that was my chill, I guess. Not really any bags. Oath is awesome. It will continue to get more and more awesome. Grain is awesome, believe it or not. I know people don't necessarily love to hear that, but I think 2024 is really going to be our year, and it's been a lot of building to get to this point.
So your answer was excellent. Just from a neutral party, I think your answer was excellent for the very reason that it wasn't the so-called actionable alpha that the lazy people are looking for. What it was an answer that allows for, once again, expansion around topics that have a direct and an indirect impact in terms of what's going on in this space. So I approve. I think great answer. I didn't realize that Balancer were onto a V3. I think Balancer's kind of like been something that I've loved to hate.
Yeah,
But
dude, me
but
too.
at the same time, the guys have stuck around and they've grinded it out, and it's I'm gonna definitely go check it out, because generally the stuff that you love to hate is always the stuff that you need to be paying more attention to. And I mean, we're at the top of the hour. I know that you overlapping on a meeting now.
It got
But
canceled, luckily. So I got
oh,
the
cool.
Telegram message. I was like, "Ooh, yes!" So nice.
Yeah, cool. So I think just closing it off, I think there's a lot that has been discussed in the last hour, and I think it's been excellent, just because we haven't sat here and kind of harped on about oath, and we haven't harped on about any of that stuff. I think that's coming. I think we are obviously, we're going to do that in future episodes with you. But what I've really enjoyed about today's talk is that it's given me, I was almost like feeling like almost stuck in this paradigm shift that's currently happening in the market, where it's about modular and it's about that, but it's really brought me back to earth in terms of the perspective that, and reminded me of a very important thing that you said, is that we are chain agnostic, and we are, as blockmates as well. We are agnostic to, and falling into the trap that this is better than that, and we've got to like almost support that, and we've got to argue it. Not that we do that, but it's very easy to kind of like, oh, I've got a bag of this, and now I need to like get on the soapbox and defend it. And it's not about that. And thank you for the reminder. And the second thing that I've really enjoyed about this conversation is that there is this constant exploration around what we need to be mindful of. Like, let's be mindful of security, which we think we are, but we're not, because as a lay person and someone who doesn't understand, it's a very complex and it's a very difficult thing to get right. And like you said, it's probably the single most difficult thing to get right. Even though we have all this efficiency, like that's the one thing that we just still need to like really get a grip on.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about it enough. It's something that we really need to be supportive with teams and encourage this kind of like mind space where, like, guys, get it right. We want our money to be safe. We want this process to be an enjoyable one. So great reminder on that. And then also just really cool to see that there are teams out there, and obviously a large team that you guys are, that's very serious about what it is that you're doing. And at the same time also can see the humor in everything, and can see kind of like, okay, like there is the human element, and we need to accept that. But yeah, so those are the 3 points that I've really enjoyed about. And then obviously, the myriad of conversation points that I'm going to go back and watch this again, probably more than once. And then I'm going to call you back in and, expand on, what Oath is doing, what Granary is doing, why are you doing it, how are you doing it? And an opportunity for us to kind of like, go on that journey together over the next few months. And yeah, dude, it's been great to have you on. And like I said at the beginning, was dying to speak to you, and I can see why now. And it's been really cool and really positive as well. And yeah, I just wish you guys all the best for 24, and look forward to future conversations with you.
Yeah. Thanks for the spot. Really lovely to chat. And we could probably like polish off a good 10, 20, 30 hours of talks like this. So, just invite me back whenever. Happy to talk about your bags. I think your following you is always funny. If you knew how many hours we put into like the market analysis of like Harry Potter, Sonic Obama, Pikachu, Bonk, meme coins have a crazy type of PMF. So always happy to kind of chat about the latest.
Cool, brother. Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, to everyone who's listening or watching, please like and subscribe. Definitely put in Mr. Bebis's socials, go follow. Yeah, just try and connect to what these guys are doing. It really is the essence of what DeFi is about. I mean, we have had guests like this on before. We don't have enough of them, in my opinion. Not to discount all the other great people that we have on, but these are the guys that oil the machinery out there. And yeah, I'll give them a follow. And please like and subscribe. We need it so that we can carry on doing this kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a game that needs to be played there. So yeah, thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Everyone else out there, thanks for listening in.
Thanks.
Until next time.